I will tell you, I have a lot of unfinished DIY projects in my house because my activator is like, you know what? Today I'm going to paint my living room. And
Yeah.
I just jump in the car. I go to Home Depot. I get the stuff. I set everything up. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, I'm tired of doing this.
Yeah.
Or something else excited me.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right, right? A podcast for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with a beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in. Welcome back. We're doing it right. Right, Colleen? Are you doing it right today?
Yeah, every day is touch and go with my internet, so we're just figuring it out. Also, this is a different time for us to record, which is fine. But what I forgot was at 11 a.m. every single Friday, the tornado warning testing goes off. And as we were logging on, I was like, oh, hey, this is going to be interesting, but it's done. We're good. Everything's life, right?
That is life. Yes. Okay, well, we have a very fun guest today, revolutionary guest. Rachel Wainer is a workshop facilitator and a Gallup certified strength coach who helps people understand the inherent potential and power within their unique talents. She specializes in coaching high-performing teams and their managers on how to apply their strengths to meaningful goals and create workplaces that people love to work for. Rachel has 15 years of experience in learning and development and draws from positive psychology and behavioral science to create transformative learning experiences for her clients. Oh my gosh. Break that down, girl. Who are you?
I know. I was going to say, well, that sounds like I'm doing it right for sure. When you
are doing it right. Before we dive in, our third person who is always with us, who's not with us on the show, is Susie. And Susie is who introduced us to Rachel. And so we're always thankful for that introduction. And Rachel did a presentation for our group, and that was amazing. And Cheryl and I were like totally geeked out. Our whole group was like completely geeked out after you came and talked to us and we did all of our steps. So we had to have you on the show. So we're so excited, and we're so excited to have all of our listeners like completely geek out as well.
I love that. And I am also grateful to Susie always for her friendship and incredible wisdom and connections like these. There is nothing I like more than talking about strengths with people. And so I'm so glad to be invited to talk about strengths with you guys and your listeners, because it's just, it's not trivial to use the word transformative in your bio to say you teach transformative material, but I so deeply in my guts believe that this message and approach to personal development really is transformative. And so it's just the best to talk about it. And it really is. Yeah.
I think one of the things that really resonated with me, and obviously we'll dive into this, is the first test or thing or whatever method where you're really focusing on your strengths versus what you need to improve on. And I was like, this is where it's at. Like, this is what we need to be teaching people instead of focusing so much time and energy on, I think you said like this, like a positive, like on the negative of what you're not good at or what, maybe your strengths aren't, and spending all that time working on that. This was very freeing for me to be like, just lean into what you're good at. So I'm excited for you to tell us everything you want to tell us. Share whatever.
Yeah. I love hearing that, Colleen, and that's what resonated with you. And I can tell you, when I was first introduced to this idea of strengths-based development, which I'll explain, in just a moment, I was 22 years old. For me, that was about 20 years ago. And I was a kid who really wanted to be good or even better than good at everything.
Yeah.
I'm joining you from New Jersey. I was born and raised in New Jersey, definitely like a fast moving, high achieving, competitive place. And I really had this idea that like to be excellent meant I had to be good at everything.
Right.
And I worked really hard to be good at everything. And then I got through college and I kept having this like nagging thought that I think a lot of young people do, and even a lot of totally grown up people do, which is like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Like, how do I know what's the right career, or how do I know what's going to make me happy, or how do I know how I can like have the biggest impact on my family or my community? I mean, these are the things I was thinking about. And then I was introduced to this assessment you mentioned, which is then it was called Strengths Finder. Now it's called the CliftonStrengths Assessment. And I was taking a graduate school course. I needed one more psychology class to graduate, and the local community college was offering this course called Positive Psychology. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And I took this course, and we read, our main text was this book called Authentic Happiness, which is written by Martin Seligman, who is considered the founder of positive psychology. He's at the University of Pennsylvania. And among other things in this book, I read about the idea of identifying your unique strength. And that once you identified your unique strengths, you could really focus on developing and using those strengths to live a good life. And that just really resonated with me. And so I then, took Strengths Finder, which was created by a different psychologist named Don Clifton. And I, discovered and had the language for the first time to name and talk about my strengths. And the experience was just so freeing. Like you said, I felt so like free, like, yeah, this is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And I found I had direction and hope and purpose and energy. And it was just such a 180 from what I had been doing up until that point. So I had, the experience you just described is what I experienced also, all those years ago.
I just think it's so, cool is not the most eloquent word, but like, cool especially, I wish I had it at 22, but at 41, to recognize, especially for women who, to your point, have typically high achieving women who are the people that listen to our show, or, like entrepreneurial people, you are told growing up, especially as a woman or girl, that you have to be good at everything, right? Like you have to get a 4.0 GPA, you have to be on student body, you have to play sports, you have to play an instrument, you have to blah, blah, blah. And that's how you would succeed in life, right? And it's never like lean in to the things that you're good at. And so anyway, I would just love for you to kind of talk through all of that with us. And Cheryl and I both have taken these assessments now. And I really thought, Cheryl, I thought ours would be much more similar than they are, because personality wise we're similar, but they're different, which I thought was interesting as well.
I feel so seen with my results. I'm like, oh, that is me. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that feels good, right? Like be seen.
So good. And I think
Feels
it's
so
good. Some of the things that maybe you know about yourself but weren't recognizing, or other people don't recognize in you, that it does validate that, right? It's like, oh, you know what? You are, based on your responses, based on you, here are these wonderful things about you. So tell us a little bit about the assessment, and then we'll get into how you coach to that.
Yeah, definitely. So, we've all said strengths and talents and positive psychology a bunch already. So why don't I sort of define those things so folks can be on the same page with us? So what we're talking about here, and the assessment that Cheryl and Colleen took and that I coach around, is called the CliftonStrengths Assessment. And it is an online tool created by Don Clifton, who was a psychologist, and it is through Gallup, huge organization on employee engagement, worldwide leader in employee engagement. So I'm sure many of your listeners and you too have probably taken lots of different types of assessments, and I work with all different ones, but this one is very unique in that it is meant to identify your unique talents. And so a strengths-based approach to development focuses on identifying and nurturing an individual's innate talents and abilities. So like those things that come naturally to us. And it, rests on the idea that we are all uniquely talented and that our greatest chance to succeed, at work, but really anywhere, lies in strengthening what you naturally do best and doing more of it. So, like you mentioned, it shifts the focus from fixing weaknesses to building on strengths, which fosters, a more positive and productive pathway to growth. And, like I experienced, many people experience that a strengths-based approach improves a person's confidence, direction, hope, even kindness towards others when you start to see other people as uniquely talented and really having something valuable to bring to the table. So talent, as we're talking about it, we define talent as a naturally recurring pattern of thought, the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we behave that can be productively applied. So some examples of talent as we talk about them in Clifton Strengths and in strengths-based development is maybe naturally recognizing patterns in data and stories, right? That's a natural talent. Thinking in an orderly, in timely manner. Being driven to get things started is a talent, or confidently trusting your gut, living life on your own terms. These things are talents. And so we don't often think of these things as talents. Sometimes we think of them as, quirks or idiosyncrasies. And this is really shifting our mindset to seeing those as our innate talents. And so that's, kind of the bedrock of strengths-based development and what this assessment is trying to measure. So the Clifton Strengths Assessment measures the presence of your talent in 34 different, themes or talent areas that, Gallup and Don Clifton have identified as being most directly related to a person's potential for success. So ultimately, when you take the assessment and you get your results, it shows you in rank order from 1 to 34, your strongest talents, 1 through 5, and then ranked ordered all the way down. And essentially it gives you a name for what it is you do best. And so that's right. That's kind of the overview of this amazing assessment and approach to development.
I'm interested. I'm looking at my results right now. And, obviously we focused on the top 5 because this is a strength. We're trying to focus on our strengths. What I'm sitting here finding myself doing is looking at my bottom, like 4 or 5.
Yeah, totally.
And shifting my focus to what am I worst at? And I'm seeing on there discipline and consistency are number 32 and 33. And that also feels very accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally natural. And a lot of people can't help but sort of go to those bottom ones. But I hear you sort of chuckling about it and not being particularly discouraged or distraught by it. Is that, when you first read the report, is that how you felt? Looking at those bottom ones?
The consistency and the discipline, just hilarious because yes, that is the things I'm the worst at. And it's fine. It's not breaking my life. Like I'm doing fine with that.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, like no wonder I can't stick to a diet or keep an exercise routine or journal every day. It's because I am the worst at discipline and consistency. Just amusing.
One of the things that you said, Rachel, made me kind of start to think about like, these things that we're good at and being positive about them. And what's cool about, for me at least, were some of the things that were my top 5 are also things that I was told as a younger person or even as a young adult, like that those things were not good or that those things were not okay. Like, and we can get into it, but like, I'm an achiever, like that's number 5 for me. And like, I want to achieve and I want to do things and whatever. Or like, I'm an activator. That's my number 1 activator. Like, I just want to get things going. I want to do stuff. I want to start it, blah, blah, blah. But there was a lot of times where I was told like, no, you should know more about that before you start, or you should slow down for that, or don't go too fast into those things. Or, I think as an activator also, and obviously more because you're the expert, but like an activator, somebody wants to get things started. They don't necessarily want to take it all the way to the end, right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that is me with the, I'm like, great, let's do this. I think we're going to get it started. We're going to get it going, and you can figure out how to do the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love strength, not a weakness, right?
Yeah, totally. And I'm like grinning from ear to ear listening to you talk about this because I also have Activator in my top 5. And so, yeah, Cheryl also. And so let me just, share for everyone, what Activator is. The first step in using your CliftonStrengths Assessment is naming your talents. So what do these words mean, right? How are we defining them? So people exceptionally talented in the Activator theme can make things happen by turning thoughts into action. They want to do things now rather than simply talk about them. They create momentum. They bring a catalytic sense of urgency. They require less discussion, more action. They love initiation and instigation. They hate wasting time or waiting. And some of their barriers are they leap before looking. And so all 3 of us have Activator in our top 5. And, I heard you, Colleen, saying, earlier in life, right? Some folks flagging that for you, and the achiever strength also flagging that as, oh, you got to look out, or kind of rein that in a little bit. And so I'll speak to sort of weaknesses, that you mentioned, Cheryl, and also, the ways that our strengths sometimes get in our way as well. And how that level of self-awareness comes from this incredible assessment. So, to start with the idea of weaknesses, the Gallup defines a weakness as anything that gets in the way of your success. So, to identify a potential weakness, we encourage folks to ask themselves, does the theme ever undermine your success? So, whether it's your low ones, Cheryl, or your top ones, Colleen, do those themes ever actually get in the way? Because sometimes people gravitate to the bottom of the report, and I ask them, like, well, does it matter that you're low in that? Like, has that prevented you from succeeding or getting the things you want? Or is it more, we have these cultural or societal or familial expectations of like what it means to be good. And so we wanted those because that's just what we've been raised to value. So is it getting in the way of my success? Then have I ever received negative feedback related to this? And does my role require me to do this more? And if the answer is yes, right, then there are different things you can do, right? So if the answer is yes to that, we say don't ignore your weaknesses then. Focus on your strengths and how your strengths can help manage those areas that get in your way. So if I were, coaching someone who really identified a weakness at the bottom of their report, right, and I asked them those questions and they said, yeah, this really does, get in my way, I'd say, okay, what does success look like and how is this weakness getting in the way? And now how can we use one of your strengths to achieve that goal? And so it's still, it keeps drawing us back up to those strengths, right? And then when we look at our strengths and we identify, right, a really powerful question is, does this strength sometimes get in my way? And the answer is definitely yes, sometimes they do. We can think about our strengths as in like a raw form, which is they're just kind of firing. They're coming out of us like we don't have a lot of control, right? Undeveloped. Or we can think of our strengths and aspire to having like a mature version of our strengths. And so, I will tell you, I have a lot of unfinished DIY projects in my house because my activator is like, you know what? Today I'm going to paint my living room. And I just jump in the car. I go to Home Depot. I get the stuff. I set everything up. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, I'm tired of doing this. Or something else excited me. Like, and I go do something else, right? So like I have, to what you said, Colleen, like people have pointed out I should sort of slow this down. You ask yourself then, like, when does Activator get in my way? And okay, what can I do to kind of mature that strength a little more? So, for me, it's my husband is a good check because he is much more measured than I am in jumping into things, right? So then you like put into place different strategies to help you keep that strength from derailing you, specifically the Activator one.
Yeah, for sure. I have now realized that I just need to find someone else to do the doingness of it. Like I want to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like to your point of like, I would love to do this DIY project, but instead of doing it myself, I'm going to hire a painter to do this because that
Yeah.
that way I know it's going to get done because I know if I start it or my husband and I start it, there's too much in our life going on that
Yeah.
won't get done. Right. So
Yeah.
that's something that's kind of come up in the last few years of trying to figure out like how to handle this energy.
Yeah.
Failure.
And then it's it's all about, right, figuring out how to productively apply our talents. And that's, I said the first step in when you read your report and you're exploring your strengths, the first step is to name them, right? So read the definitions and kind of really get to understand what the theme means. So I read the definition of activator. And the second step is to claim the talent as your own. And sometimes we say it's to love it, right? So like when I'm working with folks, a big part of my job is to get them to love their strength. And a lot of times people read their reports and they name them and they're like that is me. And I see how that brings value every day. And for some folks, it's like, it takes a little more, right? A little more digging. But the claim it bit is saying, how does this strength bring value to your life? And how has this strength helped you be successful? So for me, when I think about my activator theme, and I think about how does this strength bring value to the teams I'm a part of, what comes to mind for me is during the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was on the executive committee of my synagogue. And I'm sure we all remember, like, it was a really paralyzing, fearful time. And the activator in me was like, we got to do something. Like, we got to do something now. We got to organize. We cannot waste time. People need us. And that was tremendous value that I brought to that team. And other people brought other value to that team. But in that situation, and I can think of many other situations where I was the one saying, we've got to do something now. And so, if you're listening and you're the one at the end of a team meeting saying, okay, but like, what are the action items? Right? You might have activator in your top 5. Like when I'm sort of a solo person. I work for myself, but I think back to teams I was on and I was always the one like, okay, but like, what's the action item and who's responsible for it? And like, when are we going to get started? And what are we going to do tomorrow? And what are we going to do right when we end this meeting? So that's like the claiming part. So, I'd love to toss it over to you, Cheryl, or Colleen to, you both have your reports open with you right now. I have your reports also. If you wanted to take a look at it and, maybe it's activator, but maybe there's another one that really resonates with you. And I'd love if you wanted to give us the definition and tell us how it's added value to your life.
Okay, I'm going to go with my number one strength, which is woo. And I have to tell a little story first. I have a friend, Jackie, shout out, who did this long before I did. And she had woo. And I remember her just talking like, I have woo. Nobody has woo as number one. She was so excited about this woo. And I'm like, I don't know what this fucking woo thing is that you keep
what does woo
about.
mean?
Like, what does woo mean? Okay, well, woo means winning others over. And I was like, oh. So then when I did it and I got woo as my number one, and I was like, Jackie, guess what?
Yeah. Love it. I love it.
I'm woo too.
All right. So do you want to read the definition of woo for us, Cheryl? It says how you can thrive. Why don't you read that part?
How you can thrive. You love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. You derive satisfaction from breaking the ice and making connection with someone.
Oh my God. That is very you.
Yeah. Very, very me.
I'm good at that.
Yeah. So what parts of that really resonate with you? And, what we're looking at the screen for everyone listening is we have these reports open and it lists all your strengths in order. And then there are a couple of pages on each of your top 5 strengths. Those are the ones that really are showing up every day for you. and the ones that, you should really aim to strengthen and then intentionally apply. And so for each of the top 5, you get a personalized description of that theme based on the combination of all your other themes. So I'll point out, Cheryl and Colleen, your woo might actually read a little differently, the full definition. So Cheryl, as you're looking at those colored boxes with the descriptions, what kind of words or phrases really jump out to you as like, wow, that's really me?
You genuinely enjoy the friendly give and take as much as another person does when you're like bringing somebody in, and you like to help others overcome obstacles. That's very true. Let's see. What I find so interesting, just even the word connection. So in my Happier Human call this week, shout out Sky Michaels, we talked about what's our purpose in life. And my purpose that I've defined lately for myself is genuine connection. That truly is. And everything that I do, the underlying theme is I want genuine connection with whoever it is I'm working with and whatever level I'm working with them. And so then to come over here today and see like, oh, well, yeah, I value making a connection with someone as my number one strength. No wonder. And then it's also interesting because I think we think that our innate talents, but I'll speak for myself. I think that my innate talents are not, I'm not the only one with these. Other people, everybody else also has this. But then when you look at this report and you see there's 34 things and everybody has a different order, it's so eye-opening to realize, oh no, this is unique to me. And everybody else has their own set of strengths. So,
yeah.
And that can help with understanding, like if I'm working with a partner and they don't have the same activator, it's like, I really obsess over this. Just start, done's better than perfect. Don't get paralyzed by perfection. But I'm sure there's a strength in here that somebody has that actually paralyzes them and puts them in the opposite category as me, where I'm like, let's just go. Again, the activator. Let's just start. So it's just so interesting when you see the perspective of like, oh, this is just me. I'm this way.
Yeah.
I can't expect everybody else to be this way also.
Yeah.
Well, and I would, I think people would argue that you and I are fairly similar, right? Like we kind of are like the same type of gal. But woo for me, it's 26. It's nowhere near the top. And that's interesting to me. And not that it's like a comparison game, but like, I think it's just interesting to look at those things when you do feel like, you're similar to somebody, or like you guys are whatever, that to your point, Cheryl, we all do have different strengths. We all do have all of these different things that we do similarly well, but then similarly different.
I can't help but think as we're doing this, and I'm sure this is Gallup's intention, and I'm sure you coach this too, Rachel, is when building an organization or a team, combining people's strengths in a way that makes you so powerful. Having this information can really put you in a position to do that.
Totally. So my business, the business part of this for me, I specialize in working with teams. So, there are some Gallup coaches who specialize in executive coaching or who specialize in creating a whole organizational culture of strengths development. My specialty in the groups I've been working with the last 10 years is teams and their managers. And I really get excited by this idea of bringing together a group of, usually 8 to 20 people. And the goal of these workshops, they're usually half day to full day, is at the most basic level, it's an awareness and appreciation of our own strengths, right? And then the strengths that everybody else is bringing to the table. And you're just, so spot on, Cheryl, that awareness in and of itself can reduce friction, right? Like conflict in the workplace that results from, we're in the meeting and I'm saying, let's go. And somebody else is like, we need to do a little more research, right? And having that common language and understanding to say, you know what, that's my activator coming in right now. Like, I'm happy to pause for a minute, but right here are my concerns. So it's having that shared language is a big thing. But at the beginning, I said CliftonStrengths and strengths-based development can actually make you kinder towards others. And I'll open up here for a minute and say it has definitely made me appreciate and really love people more. And instead of being frustrated by the things that I, identified as interpersonal conflict or other people's ways of doing things. And I have self-assurance in my top 10, which is I feel real confident in what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I really have shifted my mindset. And when I see people and look at people, even when we're in conflict or there's friction, I think, but you are a uniquely talented person and you have something to contribute. And that for me on a personal level has brought me like a lot of peace and joy and love into my life. And so I don't guarantee that every team gets that experience, right? But, for me and what excites me about this work is like it can be really deep. And, I'd love to add on, you mentioned like the life purpose stuff. And it's fantastic, for you that you sort of could articulate what you saw as your life purpose. And then strengths was a way to sort of affirm or validate that. But for a lot of folks, they're really like, I don't know what I'm here to do. And it's not a stretch to say that doing the Clifton Strengths Assessment and understanding your strengths can really help you find that purpose and direction. And for me, in terms of like what brings me to this work, right? I look around our world and see a lot of problems that need fixing. And I think my role in that is helping people figure out how they can make the most impact in this world. Like, how can you bring your best talents to the table to like solve these problems? Both so we like actually get some solutions, but also like you're going to be happier, you're going to be nicer, you're going to have more energy, you're going to feel good when you are using your strengths. And so like, it's a global movement. It's like a real powerful way to think about making a difference, in our world. So that's what lights me up.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, all of what you're saying. I'm just like, it's all happening in my brain. And one of the things I was really thinking about is I'm thinking about two teams or two groups that I've been a part of through my career, particularly where there was a lot of conflict and where this would have been, oh, wow. Well, one where I was in a leadership position and one where I was not. And I think, one of the things that when I was not in a leadership position, but part of a team or part of a group, one of the things that I was feeling was that there was this expectation to perform or expectation to be a certain way. But here we were,
Yes.
8, 9 different people. Clearly, we're all not going to be the same. And, this would have been a really amazing. No, we had done the DISC profile, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Very different, right? Because
yes,
at least how it was presented to us, DISC was meant for us in a sales position to analyze and use towards other people to adjust to the other person, right? And this,
that's right.
All. So this would have been more interpersonal, like interrelational in our team. And then in my leadership position where I was kind of thrust into the helm of a very dysfunctional department and no one wanted me there. It would have been really helpful to like lean into like understanding what people are, like what their strengths are, and then be able to chat with them on how we support somebody in those strengths or how we could use those strengths to our advantage in the department and whatever. And as I'm building my team now, this will definitely be a tool I see myself using to really help and guide and people into, if they're becoming new agents or trying to change or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So cool to understand, to have something really concrete to understand a little bit more about somebody. So it feels a little bit like the easy button, like to, like, yes, you have to spend time with people and get to know them, but here's something really concrete where you get a little insight.
Yeah. It's like it shortens the learning curve on getting to know people on a team. My husband has his rapport and we share them with each other. And it has really helped us, as business partners in our running our family and also as, romantic partners, like better understanding each other. And, to the point of strengths-based partnership, like this is what I'm good at. This is what you're good at. Like, how much more powerful would we be if we were more intentional about using our strengths at the right time and maybe stepping back and letting you use your strengths at other times, right? Because that third part of the Clifton strengths and the Gallup approach, we said it's name it, right? Claim it. Like, how does this strength bring value? And then the third part is aim it, which is, all right, now you know what you're good at. You love it. You know how it brings value. How do you now more intentionally do those things you're good at? Because our potential for excellence is really in doing more of what we're naturally good at. And so aiming it can look like, I have this very concrete challenge in front of me. I have a very concrete goal in front of me. All right, let me look at my strengths and think, how do my strengths give me traction in achieving this goal, right? The three of us would all approach the same goal in different ways, and we should, right? And to your point, Colleen, about, kind of in the workplace, we're sometimes on teams where we feel like there's this like ideal way of being and everyone should fit into, in an American business culture for a long time. And still there's, right, like a certain archetype that's like celebrated and promoted.
Yeah.
And it really takes a manager who understands and appreciates this approach. I'll give an example of a manager I've worked with who has someone on his team who's highly analytical. All right. And that person had been given feedback that they should, if they want to advance, they really need to get better at like public speaking and giving presentations. And this manager was like, this person does not have to give presentations to be good at their job. It has nothing to do with their job. So like, let me develop their analytical skills more because that's where they're going to make a big contribution. And let me develop this other person's, who has communication. Let me help them develop that. And on the team, they'll be the presenter and they'll be the researcher. And like, now we're really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
But it takes a leader or manager to know that, right? Otherwise, we are stuck sort of trying to meet the standards of other people's standards that probably aren't right for us.
I brought this home. Not brought it home, did it at home. So it was home. But my husband came home and I was like, I'm just letting you to see all these things about me that are my strengths.
Yes.
It's so weird. I was like, these things are my strengths. And and I, you said this, and I am so desperately want my husband to do it because he and I are very different, but that's, part of what makes us work really well. And he was the analyzer and I am the communicator. Like that is a perfect example of how we would work together. Mm-hmm. But I also am thinking like, for those who, because he's in a little bit of a period where he's looking to make either a job change or a career change or something, like this would be a really great tool for somebody in that position to, you tell me, but to take this assessment and say like, wow, okay, here's what I'm good at. How can I apply these skills? I think this really helps too when people are looking to make a career change, which is something I've done several times, right? Where you're trying to find that common thread, like how do I transfer these skills to this, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Also,
go ahead.
If you're interviewing for a role, so maybe you're not going to be like, how powerful to bring this ammo with you. Like my strengths are woo, positivity, and communicator. That's going to serve your business in these ways. Like how powerful and smart, and you're going to set yourself apart from anyone else also interviewing for that job.
Totally. Both of you are just spot on how this assessment can be leveraged for folks who are looking to change careers or on a job search. If there's anyone who is interested in getting connected with an awesome CliftonStrengths career coach, they're out there, and I'd be happy to help folks connect with them. In general, the CliftonStrengths Assessment, I love telling people who are at the most basic level, right? Like you don't want to invest in a coach, you right? Like you're not into all that right now. Just take the assessment, read the descriptions, and use those descriptions on your LinkedIn profile, on your website, in your bio, in your cover letter. Like the language of the CliftonStrengths Assessment, right? It's like, it's so simple. Like, just take the assessment.
Hot tip. These are great tips.
Right? even for myself, I have communication in my top 5, which might not be, surprising because here I am just like talking. And communication, right? We're going to name it, is people exceptionally talented in the communication theme generally find it easy to put their thoughts into words, and they're good conversationalists and presenters. So I love to talk. I love to talk with people. I have a really hard time writing. It's really hard for me to write. And so even for myself, I have pulled from the Clifton Strengths report when I, started to go out on my own and have my own business now and consulting practice. I really struggled with writing copy. And I took my own advice and I looked at my report and I've pulled language from the report to use in my marketing material to describe myself and the value I bring. So totally, like, use it in your written stuff, prep for an interview with it, right? When people are prepping for interviews. And, then to what you said, Colleen, like, it's great to know what kind of work lights you up. And while the themes and the strengths, right, don't always align perfectly with a particular task, when you're exploring a job description, when you're, being interviewed and you get that chance to ask questions, knowing your strengths, there's parts of the report that tell you like what you need to succeed, right? So like, I have high discipline, and discipline is a strength where I enjoy routine and structure. So if I were interviewing for a job, and I could be choosy, of course, I know it's a tough job market right now and we can't always be choosy, but I'd want to know, like, how structured is this team, right? Do we have regular weekly meetings? Is there clear roles and responsibilities? Do we have strategic objectives? Because I need that to really thrive. And so many ways that even just taking and reading the assessment can really help you out on your job search and marketing your business.
I'm thinking about how I'm going to take my existing bio that I have, and I'm going to take my Clifton Strengths top 5, and I'm going to plug it all into ChatGPT, and I'm going to tell it to rewrite this and highlight my strengths.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to see what comes out. So you guys,
I'm excited to see what comes out too.
Keep an eye on my website. I'm going to be updating my bio, I think.
I know. I just launched my website yesterday, and I'm like, damn it. I wish I can. Yes. Like, we can edit, but
yes.
Oh my
God.
You
can totally edit.
Yeah.
Great, easy tip though. Colleen, I'd love to ask you. We got to hear Cheryl talk about her woo theme, and I'm wondering, as you look at your top 5, which of those top 5 most resonates with you?
Oh, all of them. All of them.
But
we talked about Activator, which is my number 1. But one of the ones, so my top 5, and I don't want to give people like not understand these words, but we can also put it in the note. Cheryl, maybe we can put some definitions of these in the notes or whatever. Futuristic is my number 2, and that is one that I just love. And that is something that I do constantly all the time. And I'll read that. And that one says, how can you thrive? You are inspired by the future and what could be. You energize others with your visions of the future. And that is just like, that lights me on fire. Like, I just, and for me, I'm somebody who, like, if I don't have a goal or a future that I'm working towards, I feel very stuck and I feel like unpurposeful. So for me, I'm, like, I can be very present in the moment, and that's fine. But what really lights me up is thinking about what could be or what can be, and like, what else is there to achieve? An achiever is on there. So like, when I read all of these together, again, to your point, like, I just felt so validated about these strengths, and it was funny. I told Cheryl yesterday, the woman who's doing my website, she's writing some copy and doing some stuff for me. She's like, I'm going to put together these neighborhood guides for you, and they're going to be like 20 pages, which is a little bit more than what normal people do. It's a little bit extra. She's like, but I feel like you're a little bit extra. And I'm like, I am a little bit extra. Like, you me. So when I read these, my first 5 strengths are Activator, Futuristic, Arranger, Maximizer, and Achiever. Those are really extra. But I have leaned so hard into those in the nice part of my life where I feel very confident in myself, in my early 40s, where I feel confident in myself and in my career, and even like seeing these things, like, I think at other points in my life, or, maybe in my 20s where I was trying to figure out where I fit or how that all worked, these things would have felt embarrassing to me, like when you're a little bit extra, like you're like, I'm gonna chill out a little bit. Like I'm gonna, make it a little bit smaller, but in this moment, those things feel so really spot on and so freeing is again like the word that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I just think that it's such a great tool. And again, in my futuristic way, I'm always thinking about how I could use it for other things. How I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. On the futuristic theme, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you see futuristic adding value to like what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like to your, your business or your clients. Like how does futuristic help you?
I see a vision of what things could be very easily and very quickly. And that's something that I can communicate and translate to people. So like I'm building my team right now. And when I sit down and talk to people about that team that I'm building in the future, right, and what that looks like, they can see that and they get excited about that. Or like when Cheryl and I talk about, our Inspire Her groups, which are national networking group, and we're talking about that with people, I can see how big that can be. Like I have no limit on what that looks like. And I feel like because I also have, communication is in my top 10, like I have the ability to then communicate those skills and inspire people to do things. And I think that has been really helpful as a leader. I think that's been really helpful as a teammate to people who don't have that skill. I think that's been really helpful, not with Cheryl. Cheryl and I can we're like in the future constantly. But, when I am at a brokerage here in Indianapolis that is new to Indianapolis and growing. And so when I'm having conversations with other agents who are at the brokerage or even, my managing broker or people who are in leadership positions here, that's something that I get to use. That's a skill that I get to bring that not everybody has.
Yeah.
And it's been very helpful to me.
It sounds like it.
Colleen, do you have communication in your top 5 or 10?
Yeah, it's 10.
Okay, because I'm just like watching our clock here and I feel like we could go on for another 3 hours. And I'm like, we clearly have several people that communicate.
Right. All three of us have communication in our top 10. Yeah. And so while 1 to 5 are definitely your, they're showing up all the time. They're your most powerful. For most folks, 6 to 10 really rounds it out for them. So when I'm coaching with folks, we definitely spend some time looking at that 6 to 10. For me, discipline is number 6. But it really, it like really comes into play for me. Or even my number 10 is something called input, which I really love. I mean, I love all my strengths, but input, I'm talented. I need to collect and archive things. I accumulate information, ideas, artifacts, or even relationships. And so, as an instructional designer and a course facilitator, I've got so many files and PowerPoints and documents where I'm just collecting podcast episodes or books or studies or skills or interventions. And so when I'm putting the course together, right, I have this huge collection of awesome stuff, but that's my number 10, right? So it's not a huge force in my life every day, but it is there. And when I can intentionally use it, right, it really brings a lot of power to my role.
Rachel, how can people work with you and what does it look like?
Yeah. Great question. So at the most basic level, you can, just simply purchase the assessment through my website. You can also purchase the assessment through the Gallup website on the shop page. I did include for you all to put in the notes a $10 off code for your listeners to purchase through my website so they can get $10 off the assessment. Right. So that's like the most basic way to interact. I'll put you on my mailing list. I send out once a month, tips for continuing to strengthen your talents. I occasionally offer free workshops for folks to, to re-engage and be with other folks exploring their strengths. I do work with folks on individual coaching. So If you want to, do your report and do an individual coaching session where we will explore your strengths, work on naming, claiming, and aiming them, that's an option for people. There's, a lot of value in just doing one hour coaching session to really dive into your report. I also do coaching packages for folks who want to continue to explore. And then lastly, the team workshop where folks with teams, bring me on for, like I said, usually half day or full day. It's great for an on-site, a team retreat. So many virtual working teams, you're coming together for 2 or 3 days. Yeah. I mean, I see your faces and I know your listeners, unless they're watching, can't see your faces, but you're both like, ooh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of power in doing a team workshop, especially for a virtual team who's coming together, but really any team. You're a manager of a new team, teams have merged, it's your annual retreat, you're just finding people are hungry for learning and development. This is a great workshop. And then, the next level is I also work with teams on a yearly basis. So, I work with a team where we're doing a half day or a full day workshop to do this deep dive. And then I'm coming in once a quarter to do, a 1 hour workshop or group coaching session with those folks. So, for the individual or the team, really great options to develop your strengths. But if nothing else, everyone should just take the assessment. The top 5 report is the most basic report. It is only $25.
Yeah.
That one only shows you your top 5, but it's a really great starting point, especially if you think you're going to, maybe fixate on your weaknesses. Sometimes it's better to just not get the 34 report because you don't see your weaknesses. So the top 5 report is $25. It takes about 30 minutes to complete the assessment. You immediately get your personalized report. The 34 report, which is what you both took, is the full report, really robust, so much great information. That's $60. And again, it's the same on Gallup or my website. And then there are lots of other reports I'll just, mention for folks. Maybe you've taken CliftonStrengths before and, you're not aware. You can buy a code to get a leadership report, right? Like what's your leadership strengths? A manager report. There's reports for students, all different kinds of reports. But folks are welcome to, reach out to me, shoot me an email. Happy to talk to anyone about strengths and just sort of learn more about how you can bring strengths development into your life. If you like books, if you like podcasts, remember I have input. I've cataloged all the stuff. So if you're like, Rachel, I want to read more about this, send me a message. I'll give you some book recommendations. If you love podcasts, I'll send you some great ones to listen to. So
awesome.
I'm excited to engage.
So we'll put your contact information in the show notes, but just for those in their car, not writing it down, not looking at their phone, where can people find you?
Sure. So you can find me on my website, which is rachelwainer.com. It's RachelWainer.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and post quite a bit. So if you're on LinkedIn, you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. I'm feeling so empowered and excited to lean into my strengths, and I hope everybody else is too. So thank you for being here. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.